I did your intro already.
Oh, good.
And I can edit. We'll just go right into it.
Okay.
I have been on a new spiritual journey and learning more about, like, I follow Gabby Bernstein. I spoke with Gabby Bernstein and she talks about like internal family systems and how.
Oh yeah. Heart work.
Yes. But it's all making me think about my parenting. And like when I rage out at my kids and
it's
I think,
apart.
yes, the thing is not the thing. Like
the thing is not the thing.
We need to get into all of it. I legit have 3 pages of notes. But you talk about that you specialize in shame and self-worth, and we all want to raise worthy. I know we both have a daughter, worthy, like self-aware daughters, and you want them to be just so and act just, yes, know their worth, but also like act like we want them to act and be perfect. And you talk about the price you paid for being the perfect child. And I relate to that so much. I'm a firstborn. Can we start there and talk about raising perfect kids and then what that actually does to adults?
Totally. IFS though changed my whole life. It changed personally my journey, but then as a therapist, and then now it's built into my framework because I talk about it's a part of you, it's a part of you, it's a part of you. Like it just completely changed my life. Like no other thing has ever changed my life as much.
Wow. Then we need to really deep dive into
spoke to like, holy shit, you know? And honestly, like I can break down, I've never seen anyone else quite get to the molecular level I get to on shame as a part, because I'm like an obsessive personality, right? And like when my clients are struggling, I'm like, I need to be able to help them. And so I have deep dived so hard into shame as a part, and it's like, it's life-changing, right? Shame, especially, all the parts are important. Whole inner critic part is important, right?
Yeah.
It's an amalgamation, but like shame, when we understand shame, because like, I don't remember a lot from childhood. We can cover this all, but like, I don't remember a lot from childhood because I had a lot of trauma. And like, I used to have this thing where I thought I had memory issues because I would like be like doing whatever unconsciously. And then all of a sudden I'd be like hit with shame and I'd be like, what was I just thinking about? What just happened? And it was because shame went through my unconscious and dropped a shame bomb on me.
Are you comfortable getting into what you went with? Okay, let's start there.
Yeah. We start wherever you want.
What happened in your childhood? Is that what made you do what you do now? Like, can you talk about your childhood experience?
Yeah. Are we recording now?
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just need to kind of get my
intro and we just, we're recording.
We're in. Okay. So I did not know that I was gonna be a therapist. No, that came in college finally. I had never set foot in a therapist's office until I was 25.
I was like 36, so no judgment.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but I think if I could have had a therapist and growing up, like, my God, I can't even imagine how different my life would be, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, really the reason, like, working with kids is a whole, the kids are great. Parents are hard. And like, I would be a hard parent. I get it, you know?
Yeah.
I would be a pain. I will, because my kids will go to therapy, but like, I will be a pain in the ass parent, and that's fine. But like, but working with kids, like every time I'm sitting with a kid who's struggling, it's like, I get this moment to be there for the way that I needed someone, and it's magical. Right. Yes. And so much of what I teach in parenting with Perspectacles is like what I've learned about how to connect with kids in therapy, like these, especially the resistant ones who have to be like dragged to therapy. Like, it's really just about like the vibe of like putting my Perspectacles on. I see you, you're in there. There's this attitude, there's this resentment, growling like a tiger, but you're in there. And I see that. Like, I'm not deterred by the times you've gotten in trouble at school and the bad kid rep that you have. Like, I see right through that to you, and kids feel that. And that's, I mean, so much of what I teach in my parenting framework is just stuff I picked up on how to connect, especially with resistant teens. That's always the hardest.
I dread the teen years so much because I like butted heads with my mom so much. What was I just going to ask you about that? What do you feel like you're making an impact and stepping in and having something for them, being something for them that you didn't have growing up? Did you have like an unattended parent? Was it like?
So I had a parent with a lot of unhealed trauma. And
as we all do.
I mean, literally though, for real. My mom, I'm not exactly sure of the nature of her trauma. No. But we're not close at this point. We're pretty estranged on my account. Just to put healthy boundaries in. It's just at some point you just have to do what you have to do to survive,
Totally.
and take care of yourself. But mostly like the trauma in my childhood, I did have some of the gnarly stuff, the SVU kind of stuff, but the trauma that really rocked me was a parent who went from 0 to raging, like unexpectedly at any moment. And so just the hypervigilance that had to come from that, you know, my older brother, interestingly, my oldest brother, like the oldest born, the firstborn is usually like the good kid, but in my family, that was like the problem kid. And so then I felt like I needed to come in and be the peacemaker and the good kid, you know, and I was the only daughter. And like with my mother's particular trauma, there tends to be like a same gendered child thing that's not always there if there's a differently gendered child. So like just a lot of like, I triggered her more, I think, and I got more of her brunt because of the unique nature. Not really, it's not unique at all. The nature of her trauma. So
wow,
yeah, I think you just go through life. Like sometimes people will comment on my good kid videos and they'll be like, okay, but I'm not suffering in silence. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have said that either until I was like 29. You know, I thought that I was fine.
So people,
I mean, 9 times out of 10. People would tell you that when they knew me from childhood and college, that I was the happiest person they've ever met.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of thought it was fine too,
because
you put it away, you compartmentalize. Yeah. And then I think you said too, I was listening to a podcast you did about what you just said, when you like your mom would go from a 2 to a 10 on a rage scale. And it's like, when it's a big jump like that, that's when you know that you've triggered something from like childhood.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not, you're yelling at your daughter, but it's not her. The thing is not the thing. We talk about that.
Yes. Yes. Something it's all, when we talk about parts, the unconscious parts of us, the question I always ask clients, and the question I always ask myself when I'm doing the work is, how did this moment feel familiar in a way that was painful? When we have trauma, things that feel familiar get mistaken for things that feel safe, like chaos. Right? Like emotional chaos that feels safe, air quotes, because it feels familiar. So we have to be, it's a little tricky here. We have to discern what's safe and what's actually familiar, right? Like sometimes familiar feels safe, but it's not safe is what I'm trying to say. But like my funniest example of getting triggered is when my son, this was like the first 18 months of his life, like type A mom with 2 kids, like game face mama. I don't feel like I like took a deep breath for 18 months. Like I was just schedules and like routines. I'm like, oh, it was a lot. And so it was sometime during that time he could like sit in the cart. So he was probably like almost a year. And daughter's at school. I'm at the grocery store. Why did I take a full cart to the self-checkout with the baby? Why did I do that? I don't know, but I did for some reason. And so I'm doing the self-checkout. And of course, as I'm putting stuff, like he's grabbing stuff. So it's like a whole thing. I'm already like kind of annoyed. So my stress level's rising. And then I get all paid and the system keeps going, please take your items. And like, I'm trying to get my items into the cart, but then Oliver's grabbing all the glass stuff, of course, like a radar. And like, and finally after like the 5th time, I was like, Jesus! And I yelled at the self-checkout. And Oliver starts crying. People around me are like, what? But like, do you know what? That felt so familiar to childhood. The boop, 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 boop. What are you doing? What are you doing? I need to know. What do you like the control? Just that moment of like, give me a minute.
Yes.
I'm doing the best I can, but not good enough. It was just so much.
And
so
you released it.
Right. I sure did. But like it's not that my parents said, please check your items. It's that it felt familiar to this feeling of like, God, I'm trying as hard as I can. Can't you see how hard I'm trying? Feels like nothing's ever good enough. Like I have so much of that that I stuffed down and bottled up as a child. And so when I have a moment where I'm feeling that way again, and this time it was the self-checkout machine, like parts of me are like, oh, hell no. Hell no, is anybody gonna ever make us feel like that? And so rage takes over and hijacks me and like shuts it down. And rage thinks it's a bear. That's the problem. Like our nervous system thinks that the self-checkout is a bear and it's trying to protect me from the bear that it remembers from childhood that hurt me so bad. Does that make sense?
And how do we raise kids? How do we break the cycle of this to like raise kids that aren't going to have, like teach them to show their emotions and feel the feelings? And because I feel like everything is like, I'm always like, shh, like if it's out, like stop, like if they're crying or trying to show emotion, it's like, we're always, especially, and I know it's generational, like my husband and my mother-in-law, like my son, like, no, don't, you're crying. No. And you tell them to suppress, and then they're going to be yelling at a self-checkout thing one day. How do we like nip it now? What do we say?
Like, it's funny because the clinical psychologist who founded internal family systems theory, the parts work, talks about, have you ever heard of this, a U-turn, where you have your finger pointed and you have to do a U-turn back to you.
Yeah.
And it's so corny, but like the number of times I'm like, it's a U-turn. It's, I mean, truly, like, me being the parent I want to be is not about further controlling, or even like parents think I need to teach my kids self-control. Like, good luck. Like, science doesn't support that. Well, it's really just a matter of waiting it out and like doing the best you can, trusting that like we're putting brownie mix into the bowl. We're not going to come out with shepherd's pie. Like, we're putting the brownie mix into the pie, you know? So how do we raise kids who can, what was exactly
regulate, like not, I don't want my child to have like what I do now. Like, I'll yell at her and you're making me think of like, I really butt heads with my daughter and I really butted heads with my mom. And I'm wondering now the same sex thing, like she can trigger me like no one else. And so maybe that's something that I need to look into. And my son's just like, I love you. And I'm like, come here. And then her and I, and she's 6.5. Like, and I'm like, is this the age? Like, she's just, it's so challenging. But my husband's always like, she's cool. Like with me, it's like her and I have this, I don't know even what I want to call it. Like this combative nature. Yeah. And she can trigger me like no one else.
Well, and I mean, I hear this across the board. I mean, truly, moms and dads. Like, I think that's, you know, my mom had a thing that made it more, but like, I think all of us, like, you see little you in her. And like, one of the hardest parts, I'm going to veer off for a second, then we'll come right back. But like, one of the hardest parts, I think, of parenting, especially when you're trying to break cycles and you're trying to raise kids who feel good enough, like you never did, and who can, you know, don't bottle up and explode like a volcano like we do. Like, we have relational trauma, which is what we all have. Even if we had great parents, like they were using shame to control us. Yeah. They were dousing us with gasoline and setting our self-worth on fire. Unfortunately, like that's what shame does. And even if we try to do it nicely, like shame is just devastating. And so like when we're trying to break these cycles, relational trauma has to be healed in relationship. And so this is a real oversimplification, but I like to think about like your oldest child, but I see it with both. I have two who are almost 8 and 5. As my oldest, you know, now she's 7. And so she's pushing the buttons, like, you know, I think I'd explain this. The things that we get triggered about the most are the things we have the most shame about. Yeah. Because shame is what drives the aggression and the lashing out. Yes. And so as she's 7 and she's doing things the 7-year-old me did and got horribly shamed for, I'm going to get triggered. Right. And then when she's 8 and she does the 8 things 8-year-old Maggie did, and the 9, it's like, do you know what I mean? So I can't. You're
like reliving it back and feeling the shame.
Literally, and getting it reflected back. Exactly. And so like, I can't heal teenage Maggie trauma yet. Yeah. I mean, in this unique relationship, right? It's like and I think to so many parents who think like, I thought I did the healing work, why do I still getting triggered? Like, you're going to get triggered. Like, that's how trauma works.
It's just a better way of dealing with it, almost like to know what to do when you're triggered.
Right. But the child who's triggering you the most is the child who will heal you the most if you know how to do that. Right.
Well, how do I do it?
Here. Okay. That's a big question. Okay. So we lost our other question too, because I have a tendency to.
No, I truly believe that like wherever this goes is what was supposed to come out. I mean, I have 3 pages of notes on like, my kids don't respect me. They only respect my husband, like specific things. But like, if we want to get into IFS and trauma, which is where I've been learning the most recently, then I feel like that's exactly where we go. Okay. So we bottle and explode because it didn't feel safe to release. Children have 6 core needs. There's 4 core needs that a lot of people talk about, the attachment needs that are super important, but then there's these other needs that I feel like nobody talks about. So attachment needs, meaning we have an attachment. Children have an attachment with their primary caregivers. And that really sets the relational blueprint, their relationship blueprint for like, when I'm in a relationship with people, whether it's friends, supervisors, or like intimate partners, like, how am I supposed to act? What do I deserve? When they do this, I do what? Is it normal for people to act this way and that way? That's your attachment. And it's the extent to which you can have healthy relationships. The healthier attachment, the healthier relationships you'll have throughout your life, basically. And the unhealthier your attachment is, the more unhealthy your relationships will be. So we have 4 attachment needs. This is Dan Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson's work. Kids need to feel safe, soothed, seen, and secure. So safe, emotionally and physically safe. Soothed, meaning they need a soft spot to land when they're struggling. They don't need us to dismiss them and send them away. They need us to be a soft spot to land, which is so hard. They need to feel seen.
That's where perspectives come in. They
Yeah.
need us to see that this little on the surface is in there, and they wish they could stop, and they don't know why they feel like they need to push our buttons right now, but they do. And they need us, like, that scene piece of like, you get that I'm good inside, right? I'm not this bad kid who's like having fun setting you off. Like, this is terrifying and I don't know why I'm doing this. And when kids feel seen, it changes everything. Seen and then secure. That means they have a parent who can set and hold confident boundaries, which again, we had no modeling. I've met zero parents who can do this without a lot of support, because how could we? Our parents use shame to hold the boundary. You don't have to be a confident leader when you're shaming people into compliance, right? So we have no modeling for this. Like, I literally had to search this as if I was learning a new language. Like, when I taught myself, like, it was like, how does one do that? Right. So safe, soothing, secure. And then they have two others: to feel like they have worth and value, even when they mess up, even when they're disrespectful, which is where the shame piece comes in. To feel loved without conditions. And then to release stress, which, like, is so obvious. And you're like, oh yeah, but nobody ever talks about that. Yeah. Right? Kids need to release stress. If we are picturing a balloon and I'm blowing big feelings of stress into this balloon, at some point the balloon pops if we don't release air out of it. Right? Kids have to be able to release stress. And so fundamentally, understanding that the kids need to release stress, and kids don't release stress the same way that we do always. Some of us never learned how to release stress properly, raising my hand really high. Some people, right, they work out, they do things to release stress, but like, got to deal with the feelings. Brene Brown talks about how we think, in Atlas of the Heart, she talks about how, I think it's in Alice. Anyway, I heard her say it at some point, that we think that we are thinking beings who on occasion feel. And it's the exact opposite. We are feelings people who on occasion think. And when we are hijacked by our emotions, as Brene says, our thinking is like hogtied in the trunk. Like, we were raised in this world where we're supposed to be a thinking being who feels occasionally. And we've all tried really hard to do that. And that's not working out very well, because we're struggling with perfectionism and people pleasing and needing to control everything, raising my hand all over the place. Numbing, we have to numb, we have to take the edge off, right? If you can't release the stress, you're just going to numb it, you know, as much as you can. And so many of us are struggling so much with that because we weren't taught how to release the stress.
Or you were taught not to show it. Like, if you're stressed, especially, like, I look at like relationships now, like my marriage, like like, I feel like a lot of males in their marriage, they were told not to show emotion, and boys don't cry. And like, my mother-in-law will still say that to my 4-year-old son right now. No, don't cry. You're a baby. You're acting that little girls cry. And I'm like, can we not? And then they get into a marriage and it's like, you never show any emotion. It's like, well, I thought I wasn't supposed to. It's like, you tell them bottle up and act.
And it's so much more than I thought I wasn't supposed to, because this is where the shame piece that we need to understand. What? The I'm not mad, I'm disappointed is a devastating. You just need to stop saying that. I know. And that's okay.
No, I've never said it out loud, but I've thought it. Are you mad? I'm like, no, I'm just a little sad. I don't say disappointed, but I know.
It's okay. We'll get you there. No, how could you not? Right?
I am
sad. I used to say that to my oldest. I'd be like, Mommy's sad right now. And like, but I didn't know any different, right? Like, but yeah, we want to move away from this. All right. So when we make kids feel ashamed of themselves, I've had parents a lot of times, multiple counseling clients, when I'll start talking about it's parents of child clients, and they'll be like, your stuff's real interesting, I like it, but I don't shame my kids, so I'm good. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna break it to you as gently as I can. That's not true. And because I shame my kids sometimes. I freaking live in this space. I talk about it, I counsel people on it, I coach people. Like, I literally, my brain never stops thinking about shame, and I shame my kids sometimes. So it's just, we don't realize we're shaming them, right? Yes. So shaming our kids means making our kids feel like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Which is literally the words that I have to hold in my mouth. Sometimes I say it.
Are you kidding me right now? I say, and now my son says it. My son will be like playing with his dinosaurs. He's like, are you kidding me right now? And I'm like, no.
That's okay for him to say it to the dinosaurs. That's fine. But like, this feeling of like, what is wrong with you right now?
Yeah,
right?
I didn't think about it like that.
You should be able to control yourself, right? Yeah. And Allie Payne is a parenting expert. I love this. She talks about how capacity drives capability. And we've got to be talking about this. So we have these expectations of our kids' capabilities, right? That you can control yourself. Self-control is not like the parts of the brain that come together. There's a lot to orchestrate impulse control that are fully developed and working together. Earliest is like 6.5 to 7.
Okay.
So if we have a child below that, there are moments where they have some self-control. That's when their stress level is lower, right? On a 1 to 10, 10's where they explode. When they're, 2, 3, 4, there's some self-control there on good days. But if they're hungry, if they are overstimulated, if they're overtired, they're all these things that fundamentally undermine their impulse control. So it's a mind F, right? Because sometimes they can do the thing and then inexplicably they can. And you're like, what?
Yes.
So we get into this, like, I have these expectations that you should be able to do this, but like, we have to remember that same for us. Like, there are things I could crush at a 2, 3, or 4, but if you present the same exact situation to be at a 7, 8, or 9, it's going to be a different story.
That's so true.
Right? Capacity, my capacity, how much space I have before I slam into 10 is going to really determine my capabilities. Can I be calm? Can I control myself? Can I not go for the ice cream when I'm struggling? Right?
For the tequila.
Yeah.
Right.
Capacity drives capability. I love that.
Okay.
And so, like, we have to, like, so much of this is we have to stand and face some of the stuff that happened to us, right? And especially those of us that like had a great childhood. I hear that all the time. Like, so did I. I would have said I did.
I don't know what I would. Maybe I blocked it out. I struggled so much. I was the firstborn. I was a perfectionist to a degree where I took it to, eating disorder, bulimia, anorexia, depression. Like, I was such a people pleasing, never wanting to let anybody down. I held everything in. I took everything on and just didn't want to disappoint. But like, when you say like or like relive or kind of like think about the time, and I don't face it. Yeah. I don't know I truly don't know what I'm like, what happened or what made it was like, I held myself to the standard.
It's you didn't. You were taught to hold yourself, right? Because children shame, it's the shame. Like it's always like the number of times across all of my work that the answer is it's the shame is all the times. It's always the shame.
Wow.
So when in these moments, like, and this is why I feel so passionate about this, because we love our kids, right? We love them and we're just trying to help. Yeah. But when we say things like, you should be ashamed of yourself. What is wrong with you? Right? You should be able to do this. You should be able to control yourself. You know better. Kids go through the shame spiral, right? You and me, we were like, I do know that that's wrong. Why am I doing this?
I'm bad.
Because you're a freaking kid. That's why. Right. And they think, well, I'm going to believe my mom. If my mom tells me I should be able to control myself here and I can't control myself, then clearly there's something wrong with me. I'm not going to say, you're wrong, Mom. I'm a kid. So I'm going to say, oh, my mom said I should be able to control myself and I can't. So the only logical explanation here is there's something wrong with me.
Oh, I hate that. Right? Oh, yes. That
and
totally
shame's sneaky, right? This is why it's passed on from generation, because I love this shit out of my kids and I shame them sometimes. Like, it's okay. Like, we will all start somewhere. I've never said I'm disappointed, but like, I have literally had to put both hands over my mouth to keep me from saying it. Like,
but you know what? You just made me think about the repair. Like, you use that word a lot. Like, you shame your kids sometimes, but you will catch it and you will repair it. And I think so many times it's like generational too. You don't apologize to your kids. It's like, if I said to my husband that I went to apologize, he'd be like, he was just raised like you were seen and not heard. You didn't talk when adults were in the room. Like, I could never picture his parents apologizing to him, but it's like, you have to, if everyone's going to like F it up sometimes, but you have to talk about the repair. Like, you can fix it.
There's no, like, okay. I have never heard another parenting expert. I hope there are more out there, but I've 0 times have I heard another parenting expert like actively talk about getting triggered and messing up.
Oh, yeah.
And like, that's one of the main reasons. There's so many, I've got so many main reasons, but that's one of the tip top that I did this. You know, I did not expect to like accidentally become a parenting expert because I was so terrified of messing up my kids. Right. I didn't expect it. Like, I didn't. Yeah. Right. I didn't think I'd end up here, but here we are. But like, when I found gentle parenting, it was like, oh, that feels right. But there was this like, all right, I'm going to tell you now, and the next time that happens, here's what you do. And sometimes I could, but a lot of times I got triggered and lost it. And then nobody even talks about that part.
No.
Like, there's just like, oh, I failed. Apparently, like, I should have been able to do the thing. And now I'm a failure.
Now
Instead of like,
yourself.
no. Right. When your stress level's at a 7, I can't get my perspectivals on. Forget it. Like, that's where I'm vulnerable. I'm going to fall right into like parts of me are going to want to give the silent treatment, to withdraw and withhold. Parts of me are going to want to make my kids feel like they don't deserve love. Parts of me are going to want to drop the I'm disappointed. Like, that 7 or higher is where I am real vulnerable to that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, so much of this is about like learning how to be back in your body. Like we had a connection to our body, and we had to learn to look outside, right? Because shame was the punishment if we didn't. Like, have I had enough to eat, Mom? Like, we didn't listen to our bodies. We were like, have I eaten enough today?
Oh, God.
Okay. Right. And so we were just trained and conditioned to look to them for like, am I good? Like, have I had enough? Have I done enough? Am I good enough? I made you proud, like all this stuff. And so we've got to like get back in our bodies, learn to like notice where our stress level is, which is life-changing, like life-changing. The number of counseling clients who have come in really struggling, and it just, that one thing, like just we'll mention it every session. Like, well, I was at a 9. So of course I was like, it's not that I don't need to hold myself accountable for the way I hurt people at a 9, but like anybody in a 9 is gonna be flirting with rage.
You recognize that you're there. It's not like,
right.
But I live my life at a 9. Like I'm on Zoloft because I am so hyper vigilant. And if things aren't happening, and I feel like I'm always coming at my kids at a 9, like, how do I not be at a 9 when I'm just raising 2 kids and running a brand, and I live at a 9?
Right. I know.
Or maybe like a 7.5. I live at like a 7.5.
I feel like when I started this, I probably lived between a 7 and 10. And then, and then it kind of, 100%. I mean, like, but like that, there's like, so my brain is like, pew, 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 go this way.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how could we not? Like, we were raised to bottle up our feelings, so we live there. So that's going to be the comfort space, right? For me, like 5 to 10, like, honestly, if I go below, like I joke about how I like am such a procrastinator, and I've healed so much of the perfectionism that drives my procrastination. And so like, but the waiting to the last minute thing, I truly think it's because my stress level has gotten too low. Like, for real.
You need to go back up.
And so my brain's like, no, let's just create a little bit of chaos. Like, we'll just wait and we'll cut it too close. And then that'll get, cause like, think about
that's familiar.
Body, I have the stress response that like wakes me back up. Right. And it puts me back to like my 5 to 10, which is my comfort zone, because I don't think went anywhere below that. Like, and truly being below 5 feels like,
something's weird. What's happening?
Right.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I'm used to living in the chaos and the stress. So that feels normal.
Right. I was 29 with my therapist asking her, how does one feel their feelings? Like, I started from below
What made
0
you go at 29? Cause I was going to ask you about that age. Cause you said you didn't realize things until 29. Does something happen at 29 that you're like, I got to get this figured out?
Yes. I got in at 25. And then I moved to DC area to be with my husband, now husband. And so I went through like 5 different therapists trying to find one that was a good fit. Like, please guys, like the fit is everything.
Yeah.
Like, who cares like where they went to school? Like, just like, you be picky and find someone that feels like a good fit. Like, don't settle, because like the right fit will unlock everything.
Yeah.
But I just found someone anyway. I was working from home for an amazing nonprofit called Comfort Zone Camp, which is a bereavement camp for children. And they run nationwide in 5 states, I think, weekend free bereavement camps for kids who've lost a parent or sibling. And so I had been volunteering for them for years, and I just got hired. And instead of commuting across DC, which was, the whole thing, I was working from home, but I was super codependent with work. And so I was like not brushing my teeth for the whole, like Matt would come home and be like, did you eat today? And I'm like, oh no, but look, I'm, super codependent with work. And so I got into therapy to like work through that, and really just to face the kind of SVU trauma from my childhood. And then had a real falling out with my mom. And I had 2 sessions with my therapist. So it was like, she kind of knew the basics, and we just got to work.
Yeah.
But I truly did not know how to feel my feelings. I did not know that I wasn't feeling my feelings. Like, I couldn't have told you any of this stuff. Like, I was great. People thought I was doing great. I mean, I'm most likely to succeed in my 5th grade class. Like, nobody knew I was suffering, but I was, silently suffering, just not understanding it, right? I was coping with perfectionism and making people happy and making everybody else proud and all that stuff. And I thought I was happy and fine. You know, turns out not so much.
Oh my gosh. That's so, I love what you said too about therapy, because people like, maybe they give it a chance and are like, that was it. You have to find the right fit. Like, don't give up on therapy because the first one isn't like the most.
Yeah.
Well,
and you can like go in the first time. And like, I always say to clients when they come in, I'm like, I might not be the right fit. And like, that's okay. But like, I would go in and say, I'm trying this out for a couple sessions. Like, you can say that to the therapist off the bat or email it to them. Just like, let them know it's a little bit of a trial so you can see. Because a lot of times I think people feel like, well, how do I break up with my therapist? Anyway, it's a whole nother story. But like, seriously, the only thing that matters is it a good fit?
I love that.
It doesn't matter what trainings and certifications they have. It's not the right fit. It doesn't make you feel safe, you know?
I am selfishly going to ask the questions that I still have. We talk about being perfectionist. The last thing that I want to do is to project my perfectionism onto my firstborn daughter. Yeah. She feels things on a huge scale. Everything is like, I mean, it's like, we just wait for the volcano to explode. If something happens, it's like, I don't look at my son, me and my husband both look at my daughter, like, here it comes. And I don't want her to hold herself to the standard. Like, things are going to happen. I want her to be like easygoing. How do I raise her to be just a confident, non-anxious kid when that's how I was? And how do I like break that cycle to not pass any of my shit like down to her?
Yeah. Short answer is heal yourself so you can model that shit. They watch us, they learn from us. Like I had to walk the walk. I mean, my daughter, I think biologically we can tend towards perfectionism. That's just kind of our nature. And both of my kids, especially my daughter, is definitely biologically there. When it's debilitating and like driving unhealthy coping, that's when we know it's the shame. Unfortunately, we keep bouncing around. Okay. So when we make kids feel like there's something wrong with them, two other things happen. One, they think, what's wrong with me, right? Like I should be able to control myself and I can't. What's wrong with me? Second is we make kids feel like they don't get our love right now. Like that's not our intention. We have no freaking clue that's what we're doing, but that's how it feels. It feels like when I can cooperate and be good and comply automatically, right? And listen, which is really a code word for obey. When I can do those things, I get love, right? But then when I can't, and my parent makes me feel ashamed of myself, even if it's not our intention, it feels like I'm loved when I'm good and I'm not loved when I'm not good or bad. That makes sense. Yeah. So it's not our intention. We don't mean to do that, but that's how, right? Think about when someone shames you, it makes you feel like you have no worth. Like you are worthless.
But it's like we're supposed to parent that and teach them. It's so hard because like you can't, if there's behavior is horrible and you have to show them, how do you do it?
Shame is not required for effective accountability. Thank God. We've just never seen it done before, right? So it feels impossible, but that's just because you've never seen it done before. You've only seen the strict parent who says, come on, your father's not going to be happy when we get, that's all we've ever known, right? And actually like the good news here is not only is it possible to parent without shame, mostly, right? I'm like 97.3 at this point, probably on most days. But it's more effective because shame makes us feel like something's wrong with me. It makes us feel like, God, what did I just say? My brain's like firing on all cylinders. It makes us feel like they're worthless without worth. And it makes them feel like they don't deserve love in those moments. That's why so many of us have struggled to be like, do I deserve love? Do I deserve my husband? Like, right? Yeah. Because we were made to feel like, again, when you can listen and cooperate and comply automatically, love, over here, I don't deserve love, right? And that's amplified when we've had a parent who's withdrawn and withheld love, iced us out, given us a silent treatment. Like it just makes us feel like we don't deserve love right now, right? And that we internalize society that when I'm struggling, when I'm a mess, when I can't pull it together, I don't deserve love. Like those parts of us, until we heal that, we'll just keep reflecting that back to us. Right?
How do we critique like a behavior or stop, like be a parent and show them how to be or to be accountable for something without shame?
How does one do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So we say a confident boundary. My go-to is, I'm not going to let you do that. Not
like
we
that.
don't do this, because it needs to be me as your confident leader.
I'm not going to let you do that.
Right. It's not the timer, like, right. It's like me.
The timer said, they love that though. It's
I know.
like,
and I'm not saying I've never done the timer, but like, you know what I mean? We're not going to hide behind like, oh, it's the, rules. Like, I don't make up the rules. Like, fucking own the rules.
I do.
Own the hell out of your rules. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just laughing because these are all the things I struggled with back in the day, like just hiding behind, like, I don't make it. Don't be mad at me. Like, it's okay for you to be mad at me. Be mad at me.
Not
right?
my fault. I never wanted to be mad at me.
I know. Well, that's because it wasn't safe for people to be mad at you. When they were mad, you felt terrible and worthless, and like you didn't deserve love, and like there's something wrong with you. So like, how could it be safe how could that feel safe?
Yeah. Wow. Right? Mm-hmm.
Literally. So we got to get over that though, because when kids need to be able to resist us, because kids resist to release to regulate. The resistance when they're pushing back and saying, I don't want, when they're getting mad at us, that's them resisting us. And that they do that when their stress level's like at a 7 or 8 out of 10, right? Their body's like, we need to have a release. Let's make that happen now. I want you to do something you're not supposed to do, so that they'll come and say, I'm not going to let you do that. And they can resist it. And then they can release all the way down and regulate down.
But why are they at the 10? Like, I feel like my daughter comes off the bus and I'm like, how was your date?
I think it's like she's living between 7 and 10.
It's like, I'm always dealing with someone that's a high number. Yeah. And so it's like always trying to release it. Like, what? I'm always like, what? She's like, Ma. I'm like, what happened now? Like, she's always like bothered.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like the age, but I'm always dealing with her at a 7 to 10. And there's never,
it sounds like she has the big releases that when you guys get out of the way and let her body do its thing, which is really the key here. Like, stop managing this, stop putting time frames, stop like assuming it's always going to make sense. Feelings. She's a feelings person who occasionally thinks. You think she's a thinking person. Like, no, she's in her feelings all day long. We all are though. Like, it's not like highly sensitive. Like, all people are feelings people who occasionally think.
And
childhood is so overwhelming. Like, there's so much. Like, think about the first time you go do something that's like, I don't know, scary, like bungee, like that's how they feel all the time. Everything's new. We have this whole framework to understand things. We can look back, we've lived through it, and we're like, oh, okay, it'll be fine. It's scary as hell right now, but it'll be fine. And we think our kids somehow know that. Like, how would they know that? We didn't know that when we were kids. Like, we're projecting, right? We forget that, like, it's Brene Brown talks about fucking first times. Like, every day is an FFT for these kids, right? All these things, it's like their whole life is a fucking first time.
Yeah.
And so they're overwhelmed all the time. And there's also, when kids go through a developmental leap, and there are these beautiful charts that like tell you when that's going to happen. They talk about periods of equilibrium and then periods of disequilibrium when their brain is developing and all their body systems are having to adapt. And it makes everything kind of wibbly and wobbly for a little while. And their mood is impacted, right? They're much more likely to have an unstable mood where they kind of are reactive. Impulse control goes offline. It's typically the times when they're eating and sleeping like, insane amounts. And you're like, what's going on? Typically, for most of childhood, they coincide with that. But there are all these things, right? And then they can be overstimulated, and then they can be overwhelmed, and then they, if their blood sugar's off, hormones show up. It's like there's so many things that impact their capacity, right? And that make their stress level higher. And really just like the little things that frustrate us throughout the day, if we don't release that and allow ourselves to be freaking frustrated for a minute, then now we're from a 2 to a 3, right? And it just builds. Like, think about just the complex social situation at school, and like with social, like there's so much for kids to be overwhelmed about. Like, and it's not always going to make sense. Like, it just, your job is to trust. It's not to be this investigator. Like, you may have been your parents' therapist. I certainly was. And so I have a natural, air quotes, natural capacity to like figure people out. And it makes, that was one of the ways that like made me valuable as a kid. So like that tendency to like help people. But like, no, your job is to step back and trust that like she's in a 9 out of 10. We don't need to know how she got here, but she is slamming into 10 right now. And the only thing we know for sure here is that if she can release that stuff and regulate down, calm her will come back.
So step back and let her don't
get
even try to talk to her.
I mean, you can, but like sometimes they want us to talk to resist, but don't shut down the resistance. Because if we shut down their resistance, they'll leave me alone. I hate you. If we act that, that's disrespect and I need to shut you down now and control you, then we're shutting down the resistance, and we're also shutting down their ability to release stress. That's it.
If she said that to my husband, I couldn't even he would shut it down. I guess you have to be on the same page then as your spouse. Like he'd be like, you do not talk to me that way. But I like you said, so you said if they're doing something, you say, I will not let you do that anymore. I will not let you talk to me. And then they resist. And then what do you've already said your piece. So that's,
I mean, depending on the age, right? Like my framework is truly all of my scripts. I mean, they need to be slightly adjusted, but like toddlers to teens, teens are just big toddlers. We don't need a drastically different, all human children need the same thing, I have to adapt for ages, but really this is true for all. So depending on the age, our kid gets mad over something that doesn't make any sense. The more unreasonable they are, the more I need you to just picture a 9 out of 10. Just they're at a 9 out of 10. They didn't have the space. Just like when I'm in a 9 out of 10 and something ridiculous comes along and I just lose it. And it's not really about the thing. Thing is not the thing. It's just when I was at a 9, I didn't have the space, right? And I slammed it at a 10. Side note, I have a tub in my office and I keep a measuring cup there with food coloring. And I will often do I'll take my measuring cup and I'll show it to kids and I'll be like, okay, this is your stress level. Because it was so life-changing for me. And I always dye it red usually, or orange, just so it's kind of an angry color. Yeah. So I fill it up with water and I have this pitcher I'm pouring from, and I'll be like, something frustrated happens, right? And their stress level has a little bit. And then and then I'm like, oh, let's have a release. And they punch pillows or something. And then we're pouring some water out. Okay, now we're back down to a 2. And I show them, right, as it builds, that this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And sometimes I'll ask them to tell me annoying stuff that frustrates them. That's great.
That would be, because then I can get in there, get in her head.
Right. Yeah. And so you show her at a 9, and then show her something that's going to be 3, ounces worth. That's going to send her into a 12. Which your brain has 2 choices there. Either it forces the release, even though it's disappointing us, which is what you see, right? Or her brain dissociates. That's where the only way she can go above a 10 without releasing is for her brain to take her consciously offline.
You said something about punching a pillow. Is that how we teach them to release? What do I tell, when she's feeling that way, I want to help. What do I tell her to do?
I mean, the first thing to do is just to allow the resistance. That's already going to be pretty revolutionary for them, because it's whoa, you're not getting what's happening here.
It'd be pretty revolutionary at this house if she says something crazy like that and nobody checks her.
Right. Yeah.
He would
revolutionary. No, have your husband watch this. I will. Swear, I specialize in anxiety and depression with kids and low self-worth, and God, this is revolutionary. I mean, they have this impulse to release us. Gordon Newfield talks about counter will, and that's where we have a will, and then when our stress level, and this is my part, kind of adapting it into it. I feel at about a 8 out of 10, counter will shows up, and that's where kids have this impulse to resist us, and they don't know why. They don't know why they need to push us away. They don't know why, but their brain's helping them facilitate a release. Literally, kids use boundaries as a release valve. The easiest example I've got is when I was pregnant with my son. My daughter was 2. I had a rough pregnancy. And I just remember this one time she was doing little things, and I was so tired and nauseous, laying on the couch, just trying to survive the day. And she did one thing and I'm like, honey, stop. And toddlers need you to walk over and take the thing out of their hand. And I just couldn't. I was just trying to get back. Anyway, 3 or 4 things happen, and I turn around and she's on the table. She literally climbed on top of the dining table. Are you going to stop me now? Come on. Give me something to resist. So I picked her up and took her off the table, and but that's the boundary she needed to resist, to facilitate the release.
But then once the release, then how do you act? So she screams at me and has her whole, does her whole thing. And then
you say, you're really overwhelmed right now.
You just notice the behavior, you say it, what they're doing. You're feeling frustrated.
No, I don't. The feel it to heal it thing, or name it to tame it, whatever it's called. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think that I know it's controversial.
No, I like this.
No, I just think, I think you can label it as upset, but I don't think we need when I'm at a 9 out of 10, or when I'm exploding, do I want people to be I think this is anger? Oh, I think it's sad. I'd be like,
this is your protector parts coming to protect.
Yeah. No.
Okay. You're upset.
Like, just hold space. Like, just don't make me feel like something's wrong with me. Like, basically that's your orders. Like, when she needs to release, picture her slamming into 10. Her cup is overflowing and she just needs to get these feelings out. She doesn't know why. She wishes she could pack it up, but her body has got other plans. And like, just like truly the most important thing, the step before it, because naming it is important later for insight, sure. But like in this moment, just make her feel like it's okay. It's okay that you need to hug her
while she's
not if she wants a hug, but I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Sometimes people say I just hug my kids and I'm like, I don't know.
I have seen before. It was like when they're yelling and what they need, you get down on their level and you hold them and you hug. Oh,
no.
Leave them alone.
No, I mean, just as a child therapist, I have so many thoughts, but like, I just think like kids can feel when we're at like a 9 or 10 and being in close proximity to first co-regulation, right? So if we're at a 10, wherever they are, they're going to co-regulate right there. But like a parent, when I'm 9 out of 10, I'm not saying I won't go close, but I'm not going to like put my hands on my child's body because their body's going to feel that rage.
Wow.
And it doesn't feel safe. You know what I mean? If I'm relatively regulated, I might offer a hug, but like with the understanding that it's totally fine for them to say no. You know what I mean? Like,
not get your
feelings from this place
hurt.
of like, if you want to hug, I'm here, but like if you don't, that's fine too. Like from that place, you can offer a hug, but I wouldn't be like, let's hug now. It's like, I don't want to hug when we're hugging right now.
Get over here and hug me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So there's the step here first, which I think is so important, is a calm circle back. This is what's so hard about social media. It's like, I can't explain all of this in a 90-second video. And that's like the longest video we have right now. Do you know what I mean? So I love these calm circle backs. Calm circle backs are a time for you to have a quick powwow with your kid, whether it's to repair and for you to do the full repair, which we can talk about. Or just like anytime there's like a dynamic that's going on where you're like, we keep having this issue, or I've noticed you do this, or I'm noticing I'm having a bigger issue. Anytime you need to have one of those conversations. And so we want to approach our kid and we want our vibe to be curious and non-judgmental. That's your mindfulness vibe, right? Just like curious and non-judgmental. This is not where I lecture you. This is where I'm open to hearing whatever it is that you need to say without judgment, from a curious headspace. And so you were talking earlier about critical mom. When I'm at a 7 to 10, I'm a critical mom. And I have this ongoing calm circle back with my daughter, who's almost 8, where I say, I'm making you feel like nothing's ever good enough, aren't I? Damn. I cuss in front of my kids. It is what it is. That's what it is. You know, wow. I think I'm doing it again. And repair is about the real apology, which is important. But to me, like what's maybe even more important is that, can you imagine how different your life would be if you'd ever gotten apologies from your parents about not like they would yell, but it wasn't like, oh, I need to apologize. It was like, you made me yell. Right?
Yes.
You set me off. Like, how dare you? Like, you need to apologize to me for making me yell at you. Like, bullshit, guys. The parent is in charge of their body and their rage. Like, it's not the child's job to not trigger the parent. Like, no. Right?
Yeah. Wow.
But like, what's so important, like what would have truly changed us and what really damages kids is that I could have used an apology, but more than that, a parent seeing the pain they caused, seeing the way they hurt me and communicating that I hurt you. It was my fault. Like, you're hurting because of me. Wow. I did that. It's the feeling seen in their pain that is so important. Right. And so calm circle backs give you this beautiful opportunity to focus on that. Right. So when I recognize in my daughter, and when I make her feel like she's not good enough, she spirals with anxiety. Right. And it's just obnoxious. And so it's like, I think I'm making you feel, and first time it was like, okay, I think I might be making you feel like nothing's good enough. And it's safe for you to say yes. Like, if am I making you feel that way? And you might need to say, it's safe. You can tell me whatever's the truth here. I want to hear it. Like, I felt like that as a child, and that breaks my heart to think I'm doing that to you. So I'm going to figure this out. And I'm so sorry. You are good enough, but I'm making you feel like you're not. That's on me. It's my work.
I feel like I need to have like a calm circle back about we have the same dynamic. We have an older daughter and a younger son. And because my daughter and I butt heads so much, my husband will check me on it. He's like, I'll be like, what is her problem? And he's like, you sat there and we're like, look at Jace. He jumped in, look at him do it. And when I do that, and sometimes I know I need to be more cognizant of it. She will, this sounds like I may even take this out, like hurt Jace to get my attention back on her. And he'll be like, or something like, what? And she'd be like, it was an accident. He's like, no, she come over here. And I'm like, I will get so enraged. I was like, he did not do anything to you. If you were mad at me, like she'll hurt him because she's trying to get my attention back. Like, what do I do there? And I will not allow that. And I will be so angry at her to like, I was like, he has nothing to do with this, but my husband would be like, she's trying to get you to look at her.
Well, she is. Well, she's trying to feel seen.
It's unacceptable. So what do I do?
Again, like the number of times it's like, but have you talked to her about it? Like, have you sat down and tried to talk to her about it? Not in a lecturing, you're in trouble way, but just to like, what's going on?
Like, do you like a calm circle back? Like when I look at Jace or say Jace rides his bike, does that make you feel like you're not like, I love Jace more or something? Like how do I
mean, you could go a lot of different ways. What's their age difference?
2.5 years. So 6.5 and 4.
That's where we are.
I know.
So the like perspectives on here. Toddlers becoming big siblings, like their insight isn't like, they're kind of just mostly unconscious. Like there's certainly like a thing, but when a kid is 2.5 or older, when their baby sibling is born, and Siblings Without Rivalry, which is the best book ever on siblings. She talks about how it literally feels like, can you imagine if your husband got a new wife? Right. And like, everybody's like, I love her. Don't you love her? And like, no matter how much you might love her, like it's hard to watch him love her. Yeah. It's hard to not feel displaced. Like it changes everything. Right. And everywhere you go, it's like your husband's going to get a new wife, get a new sister wife. Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited?
And look what she's doing. She's so good at this and making dinner. And you're like,
yeah. Yes. And there's just this thing, and we have to see the older sibling in that way. We have to, because otherwise it's just going to be button heads the whole time. Like they have to feel seen. And I had ongoing conversations with her, and I don't think it really helped, unfortunately. But like, I remember the first year that he was born, she resisted me. She like wanted nothing to do with me, but like desperately needed me. But it was so painful. And I remember just Googling and like trying to figure out like, what do I do here? But like, she pushed me away because she felt safe to push me away.
Yeah.
Right. And like she knew that she wasn't gonna like lose my love if she pushed me away, you know.
I've been handling it wrong. Like I've been like showing her, you do not blame him.
Right. Like
but I need to show her that she needs to physically stop hurting her brother. But that's her way. She's looking at him like this new behavior. Yes. And then my eyes are on her, and it's like all press is good press. Like at least she's looking at me, even though I'm in trouble.
I mean, right. Because if she can't get like attention to make her feel her worth, right? She's just got to feel seen any way she can.
But I don't want her to think the world works. Like if Jace does something, I don't want to have to be like, I have to say you are great at this. That's not reality.
Right. Well, and I think so much of this is built in calm circle backs. Like the calm circle back sets up the next time. Right. And like having a calm circle back, I have a calm circle back every time we have like a thing with my kids, whether they needs to be repaired or not. We have a
And what time frame are you coming back? That day, later that day, like an hour later?
I try to before we go to bed. Like I try, because I mean, it's not just to like all go to bed settled and like regulated, but also it's just hard to remember the next day. Like I'm just
then you'd have to, you're like, what am I circling back on?
Literally, what happened again? Yeah. So I try to go back the next day. The bedtime shit show, sometimes it's not possible, but like so much of this is built in the calm circle back, right? Where you sit down and you say, you know, whether you're saying, you know, on a sibling thing, like it was hard when he was born. Do you remember? Like, well, if you don't remember, let me tell you that so many big siblings just feel so lost afterwards, and it changes things. They feel really jealous of their little sibling, and like, it's okay if you felt that way. How could you not? You know, I've shamed you really hard for that. I've made you feel like there's something wrong with you for having those feelings. And like, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. And I'm going to try so hard to understand that in these moments, I'm not going to let you do that. But I understand that there's a part of you that's trying to get my attention, right?
Wow, yeah.
It doesn't have to be the punishment and the like making you feel terrible about yourself. You can see her and be like, I'm not ever going to let you do that. There are consequences for what you've done. Like it's not okay, but you're okay, right? Like there's nothing wrong with you. You got overwhelmed, you got hijacked, you're right. You were desperate to get seen, and you did something, and like, you're not a terrible person for that. You made a mistake, right? you lost control and did this thing, and the thing's not okay, but you're okay. You know
I guess
mean?
I was thinking if I talked to her like that, like, it's okay that she'd do it more. And like, she needs to know that is not okay,
right.
But that's not working, obviously. So maybe
right.
then she'll be like, okay, good. You see me now. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right. It's going to be a process. Like when it's been a long-standing pattern, like it's multiple incidents and come circle backs. Like it's never, unfortunately, ever resolved in like one incident. But the more that she feels seen here, that you get that she's in there, and some part of her doesn't know what's going on here, but some part is like, here, I know what to do. She'll see us if we do this, like, and takes over and hijacks her, just like rage hijacks me sometimes. And I see things like, it's just a human thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the more she can, the more seen she feels, and the more she feels like you love her, even then, right? That like, I'm not going to let you do that, but I love you and I'm here for you and I'm here to help you figure this out. And there are consequences, and here they are, and you don't have to like them, and you can be mad at me, but I love you too. It's both. Like, isn't that wild? You can do both.
Right.
I own the hell out of my boundaries. And it's funny because I get these like comments all the time about like, this is what's wrong with children these days, and coddled, spoiled. Like when I teach my boundaries boot camp, people are like, oh, like when I explain the level of owning the hell out of your boundaries, like most people are like, whoa. Like I'm like, the first time they can't do it, I need you to like come in and like help them do the thing or take it away. Like we don't give them 20 chances. Meanwhile, we build up to rage. We give them one chance, and when it's clear that they can't stop themselves, we walk over and we take the thing out of their hands and we.
But then what if they don't, like my son, he does not, or like, I know you say like, don't do timeouts, but my consequence for him, he just won't do it. Like he'll come and try to get the thing back, or like, if you take a dinosaur or something, or if I put him in, I'm like, you go sit down. He'll get up. Yes, he does not. My husband will be like, if my husband starts a sentence and the tone of his voice, they go do it. But I will try to be so firm. I'm like, you go sit down, put it down right now. He just won't do it. Like that was
to go take it out of his hand.
He doesn't respect me. He'll go like, so maybe not the take out of it, something that he can continue to do where I'm like, do not, he'll do it more. Or I'll set him down and he'll get up, and he does not respect me. He respects my husband. He doesn't respect me. Like, what do I?
Can we reframe that a little bit?
Can
we reframe that?
Sure.
This one's going to hurt.
Okay. No, give it to me. That's what I want the show to be.
It's not that he doesn't respect you. It's that he's scared of him. He's scared of you, their dad's reaction. It's a fear thing. It's a fear and shame.
But he doesn't spank him.
I'm not saying
fear of what might come.
Scared of his rage.
And he knows that I won't do anything.
Right.
So
fear and shame. Fear and it might look like he is got control of the situation, but it's using fear and shame. Respect comes from respect. Like our kids can't respect us if we treat them with no respect. Right? Like, so my kids respect me because when they struggle, I say, I'm not going to let you do that. Here's your consequence, but I'm here. I've got you.
What is a consequence that you would give? I know you don't say go sit down.
This is controversial. This is controversial. We're getting into
I've been talking to you for 1 hour already, and I know.
But the consequences thing is such a thing. Okay.
It is.
Many gentler parenting frameworks talk about how if the consequence is not related to the thing, right?
Oh.
Like then it's a punishment. And that's not true. I do not agree with that. And I get crucified for this online every day. But like one day I'll write a book about it and everybody can read 60 pages about my thoughts.
Yes.
It'll get better. Okay. The factor that we need to focus on here is not like, is it ideal to have natural and logical consequences? Like they play unsafely with the thing, we take the thing away. Is that ideal? Is that our first option every time? If it's available, you better believe it. But it's not always available. Like it's not.
Like you can't take away if they want to start watching YouTube, you can't take the TV away. So,
or like, I mean, we can turn off the TV, but like when our kids are talking back to us, for example, what's your plan here? Are you going to duct tape their mouth shut? Like, how are you going to get them to stop talking? Right. One day my son was kicking the washing machine as I was trying to make lunches, and like I'm on a time crunch. And so I go over and I move him away from the washing machine, and he walks right back over. Keeps like, it's after the fifth time. It's like, tell me, other gentle parenting people, what am I supposed to do here? There's not always a natural consequence. And we're so focused on like, is it natural? Is it logical? The element, you want to guess which element do we need to focus on? The shame. It's the shame. The presence or absence of shame is what changes it from a consequence to a punishment.
How so?
because I can take a natural consequence and make it into a punishment based on how I say it, right? I can say, if you don't put that book down, right? Fear, shame, right?
How is it
the
shame?
matter with you? Because I'm making them feel ashamed of themselves.
I've told you 3 times and you can't listen. What's wrong with, okay. I always say that. I'm like, or I will say, put it down like that. Put it down. And then I will rage out.
I want you to hear my voice. Ready?
Down.
They can't put it down.
But I scream it, then they put it down. And I'm like, you only listen when I scream. They listen
because they were scared, not because they learned something.
But it gets the job done.
I know.
They put it down.
But there's a huge cost, right? We're intimidating them into doing.
It's the only way I'll be like, put it down, nothing, put it down.
The only way because you haven't tried my way.
I know. Give me your way. Okay. Literally, and anybody that's right now, like, when is she going to ask her? Where do we find your way and your framework? Right? How do we get all this?
Okay. So I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and I have a Facebook community with parents from, I think I have a couple thousand in there from 60 countries. So I have parents worldwide who are learning. Amazing. So you can come in and ask questions and everybody there is learning my framework. But I post free content every day on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook when I have the time.
Parenting with Perspectacles.
Parenting with Perspectacles, yes. And then I'm about to launch my boot camp, which I haven't been able to do since last fall. I typically teach it live and I just don't have the capacity right now to do it. So I'm going to change it into like a bunch of shorter videos on everything from why boundaries are so hard for us, what is shame, where does that hide in our parenting, how to have calm circle backs with our kids, how to repair with our kids, how to set a strong boundary, how to own the hell out of your boundaries, how to hold a boundary when our kids melting down, consequences versus punishments, like it's going to be. And then I have a digital guide called Words That Work. And I took 11 of the trickiest parenting moments and gave you a script for like the words I would recommend you say. And I also do a little pep talk in there. So it's like, if you could pause time and call me, like this is exactly what I would tell you to help you understand like what is happening. Why is your kid acting like this? Why can't they stop themselves? And to help you see through what's going on to them inside. And then I give you a script for that. So, and I'm going to be posting on YouTube this fall too. It's just a lot.
I know. I hope you have a team.
We need to be focusing on the shame, because even if it's a natural consequence, if we're delivering it with shame and fear, to me, that's a punishment. Like, are we making our kid feel like there's something wrong with them and they're not loved and they don't deserve love because of how bad they acted? That's a punishment.
We're not trying to. Natural. That's not the intention, but that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. And I wasn't cognizant of that. I'm like, no, shame. How am I shaming them? Every way that I say it, what is wrong with you? I have to tell you what does he say to his dinosaurs? Are you kidding me right now? Mm-hmm. Are you?
I say, are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? Like, are you? But like, he's probably thinking like, I don't know how that. Yeah. My words. That's how I never.
I don't know why I don't know why I'm doing.
Why? What is wrong? Why am I doing this again?
Yeah.
Oh.
Spiral. Yeah.
So I was gonna have you end it with the number one thing that you see that parents are doing that we need to stop doing.
I mean, shame, but
yeah. But how do we, like, if I could just have parents know this, what would you tell them? Like, this, stop doing this.
I mean, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed would be a great start. And instead just saying, because again, it's about my expectations. I have this expectation that you should be able to do this. And I'm not recognizing that you can't right now. It's not that they can't. It's not that they won't. It's that they can't.
They don't have the capability.
They're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. Like, it's like their capability is gone because they are completely overwhelmed. We all lose control when our stress level hits 10 or 9, and so we've got to recognize, like, I thought you could do this right now, but you're at a 9, my quick story, my son, last year I had just had this day where I was like, our old dog, we lost our dog in January, but Lucy, they used to like take turns letting her out. And like with a 4-year-old, that's just really fun to have chores. Because the resistance is just so right there all day long, every day. And so one day it was his day to let her out and he didn't want to. And he stood there at the back door and like, no, I'm not going to. And I just had this moment. It was like this, it gives me goosebumps to remember. I just thought, wow, a success here with my parents, based on how I was parented, is my kid shuts up and does the thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a success because he's at a 10 and I'm about to send him to school at a 10. He's going to get in trouble. He's going to blow the fuck up at school. Yeah. He's not going to be able to control himself.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not a success.
No.
It's actually not. What needs to happen, and thankfully what did happen that day, because I was regulated, because I've learned to release my stress as it comes, is that I saw through to this little kid that just needed to push back. There's the resistance, and the resistance is the release. If we shut down the resistance, we shut down the release. And over time, kids learn, oh, it's not safe to release. I'm going to hold my feelings in. And then that's where the anxiety and the depression and the low self-worth and perfection, all the things come from that, from the shutting down. And so I said, I see that you don't want to do that. And you're having a hard time controlling yourself. And I just held the boundary. Like, I'm going to need you to let her out. And on this case, like if I come and do it for him, then there's nothing for him. He's going to refuse to get buckled into his seat. Like, it's me, the next opportunity he's going to resist, right? If we get through this one, it's going to be the next thing that comes along. Yep. The only healthy outcome here is that he blows the fuck up. And he did. He threw himself on the ground. I don't want you. I hate letting her out. I hate her. Blah, 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 blah.
And you just stand there? You say nothing?
I mean, they release frequently, you know? And so like when kids are holding in and they have, like, it sounds like your daughter has those that last like forever. That's because she's been sitting here and she's able to regulate all the way down. So those are exhausting, but like we still like let her body get to a point, like her calm self will just come back and show up and you're like, oh, there you are again, right? That's because she's regulated down. My kids, I feel like when kids are able to feel their feelings, they down regulate quicker, right? Because there isn't all this shame. Like I'm jumping around. I used to hyperventilate when I cried, and so did my daughter. And it's shame. Like it's shame trying to like, you know, prevent the floodgates from opening, right? Like our body will try to hold, right? And so that's like it takes so long for her to downregulate because she's got so much shame about the fact that she needs to have this release and what is wrong with her. And she's trying to hold it in and there's the floodgates are opening, right? And so it takes longer. Like my kids, we try so freaking hard to just let them have the release. And so they downregulate quicker too. Okay. And like when it comes, they know they're safe. They don't have to worry about not being loved. Like, you know, none of those things are there. It's like in our house, like everybody blows up sometimes. And so it's your turn, you know? Yeah. And it's okay. And so I held the boundary and just said, I'm going to need you to let her out, buddy. Like, you don't have to like it, but this is your job today. And I'm not going to do it. I mean, sometimes you can threaten a consequence. I just feel like more than that, it's just holding the boundary. You're going to have to do this. I don't want to do this. And at 4, he kept pushing back. I don't want to. At one point he like kicked the glass door. And so I went over and like put my hands on his legs and I said, you feel like kicking right now. I'm not going to let you kick, buddy. And 3 and 4-year-olds, like often they need the physical boundary. They need to be physically restrained and to allow the full release to happen. Like 2-year-olds, you can kind of like set it, stop, put it down, and like that'll send them over. But there's like this thing that happens with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds where they kind of need you to go hands on. And like, it's a whole complicated explanation, but like sometimes they're getting too old to be held as much. And so I truly believe it's because their body like needs to be close to us. And so they have to like create these situations that'll make us come close, you know?
Oh my God.
But we don't want to do that when we're at an 8 out of 10, right? When I'm flirting.
Because you bring our energy, our stressed out energy to them. I learned that from you.
And that is terrifying when they can feel that we're flirting with rage. And so that's why we need to go the first time. Like as soon as he kicked, and I said, can you control yourself? And he kicked again. I walked right over. I'm not going to sit there and ask him to do something he clearly can't do. Meanwhile, I'm rising and now I'm flirting with rage. Like we don't go hands-on unless it's a safety issue. We don't put our hands on our kids unless we're regulated relatively, you know? So I walked right over and I held his feet and I said, you feel like hitting. And meanwhile, he keeps trying to kick me. Like that's a thing that then he goes into orbit. And it was like a 5-minute meltdown. Like there are times that it goes longer. But again, the more kids, like it's almost like feeling our feelings and allowing ourselves to go to that place is like an ice bath, you know? And kids are like, my kids have been doing the ice bath for a long time. So it doesn't like for me at 29, trying to feel my feelings, getting in the ice bath, like, good Lord, you know? And so the more that we let them get used to the ice bath, the less jarring the ice bath is. It's still uncomfortable, still would rather not do it, but like their bodies don't have that kind of like reaction, you know?
Shock. Yeah.
But like I let him regulate all the way down. I held the boundary. And as soon as he down regulated, here's the kicker. He walked right out and like did it. I didn't even have to tell him. He was only resisting because he needed to have a release. Like kids only do that They only resist us when their stress level's at like a 7 out of 10. If I had asked him the same question and that day he happened to be a 3, he would have done it with no incident. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like if you're seeing the resistance, it's because they need to have a release. So the only way to get through to calm them is to let them have that release.
Oh my God. Instead of trying to stop it, like stop, or like, what if you're out somewhere and they're having the release and you're like,
you just do the best you can. I mean, the public releases are hard, but like, fuck everybody else. Like I am not going to destroy my child's self-worth though. Like, it was hard for me as a person, but as a mom, mama bear is there and like determined to not put my kids through what I went through. And so it's like, you can judge me out or like, I don't, get as much privacy as you can, right? Like walk out of the restaurant, go around the corner, like do whatever you need to do. But like, just their bodies know what to do. Like, and truly as I've healed as an adult, my body knows exactly what to do. We don't need to coach them through this. We don't need to manage it or direct them, like get out of the way. And so when my kids, sometimes they're screaming, they can't hear me. So it's just kind of an energy where I'm like, yep, let's go. You're doing the release. Thank you for releasing that stress. Like you got it. You're mad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. My kids will go, don't say that. Like, that's fine. They can resist my validation. Like the resistance is the magic here. So like they want to resist, something ridiculous. I don't like your shirt. Like, I don't, if they want to resist me with silly things, I don't care. Resistance can be whatever it needs to be. But the resistance is how they downregulate. And so sometimes it's, you're really upset. I do think when we have shamed historically with our kids, it's so important for the shame piece to be there. And I do this with my kids anyway, and it's probably because I'm hyper aware of it. But like kids will often, like when they slam it at 10, the anger happens. The anger's like 10 down to like 7-ish, and then the shame shows up. And that's when they like can't look you in the eye. They're like, they feel terrible. They feel like a failure. They feel like you don't love them. It's like the shame shitstorm hits. Mm-hmm. And so we can say, are you feeling bad about yourself right now? Which is how I would ask a young child. Like shame doesn't make sense to a 4-year-old. But if you say, are you feeling like I don't love you right now? Like I got really mad and I yelled and I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry if I scared you, but I do love you. Like it's okay that you messed up. There's a consequence. Like you did this and you kicked the washing machine 6 times. So now you don't get to take that book in the car. And like, you can be mad about that, but I'm not going to let you kick the dishwasher. I keep saying dishwasher, washing machine, and like, you don't have to like it, but there's a consequence for that, buddy. But I love you and you lost control and you did your best. And I'm here to help you through that.
I love it.
Right?
This has been beyond all expectations. I'm not even like looking at my notes over there. Like you've given, it's exactly what it was supposed to be. And I didn't want it to be just like a parenting, here's the tips for this. And everybody asked the same questions. Like we went into some stuff that I feel like is going to change people's parenting situations immensely. And I cannot thank you enough for doing this.
I hope so. Thank you. I will come back anytime you want.